Yo, it's Dez and I'm back with another video. What's going on? So yeah, man, let's look into the season straight away, straight from the Brentford game. We're going into the Man City game just to preview that a little bit. I feel like we've basically put ourselves in a horrific situation going into the game against Man City. Just looking at the results against Everton and Brentford. Obviously, when the Everton result came, I thought it was alright based off of like obviously you don't want to lose, but in the grand scheme of things, we were ahead of where we were supposed to be at. Do you get it? So dropping points in that game was, like that's what happened, especially because we beat United and we beat Tottenham, so it was fine. But then the Brentford game where we didn't drop points again, is basically taking us like we've lost what 5 points where we could have been 8 points ahead. We're now 3 points ahead instead of 8 points, and we're going into the Man City game. So that's gonna be the issue right there. Is that we're going into the Man City game with 3 points, with a game in hand. And looking at that game right now, we're thinking to ourselves like, at the end of the day, yes, it's not a good situation, it's a bad situation, but these are what title runs are about. They're supposed to be difficult. They're not meant to be easy. Like you're in a title race, it's not going to be smooth. All we're doing from the start of the season, where we're just winning this game here, winning that, and just continuously going ahead. It's not something that you can that's going to be consistent throughout a whole season. We're going to have these sort of bumps in the road that are going to occur and make the run difficult. It's not just going to be straightforward, and these are the kind of things that makes it all the more sweeter in the end, because you've been through such a tough, like, you get it, like that situation like this, and we're going to the Man City game knowing that if we draw to Man City, that's what's it called. We get what maintain our 3 points gap, and we still got a game in hand, so we can make it 6 points. If we beat them, we make it 6 points. We've got a game in hand to allow us to make it 9 points. So, like I said, we're still in an advantageous situation against Man City. We just need to make sure that we don't lose to Man City. This game is really important. That's just the main thing about this Man City game, is that we can't lose this game. No matter what happens, we can't lose. And at the end of the day, I feel like Man City are getting a bit exaggerated based off of historic things that they've done in the past, which is fine. But at the end of the day, the Man City that people seem to think are going to go on this insane run and come back and do this to us and stuff like that, that Man City is not the Man City we've seen this season. You have to remember, only in the last, 5 games or something like that, they've literally just lost to United and Tottenham, and then they beat Aston Villa. Yeah, they beat Tottenham as well, but they were down 2 goals. And then they came back and beat Tottenham. Then they lost to Tottenham and they lost to United and they beat Aston Villa. And even in the Aston Villa game, they didn't look that good in that game. They were very open. If Man City play against us the way they played against Aston Villa, where they were really open in transition, wide open, they didn't have a left back on the other side, so much space between the midfield and the defense. And so much gaps, and then the intensity wasn't high either, and they weren't dropping back quick enough. There was so much space for Aston Villa to use, they just wasn't able to capitalize. I think if you give us that situation, we'll definitely capitalize, and it's not going to be a similar game to what happened in Everton and Brentford, because it's a lot harder playing against teams that don't want to come out to attack, or more so Brentford than Everton, but it's a lot harder trying to score against a team that's very compact defensively than it is against a team that's actually going to come out and try to play. So we're going to get more opportunities against City than we did against Everton and Brentford. But people are even forgetting the Brentford game, we got like 20 something shots. I feel like 23 shots. You know what I mean? So it's not like we weren't creating shots. And then in the Everton game as well, we got loads of shots as well. So it's not like we're not getting like shots in these games. Is that we're just playing these games. But I'll get to what's going on in these sort of games. It's just that we played against very compact teams, but we're still getting our shots off. And if we play against a team that's going to be open, we're going to get the shots and we're going to get some chances to score goals. It's just about us taking it. And we're at home as well, so I don't see any reason why we should be losing to Man City. I think we need to either win or get a draw. Hopefully we can get a win in that in that game. And again, when you look at Man City as well, it's like the whole season they haven't played with that kind of intensity that they played with in previous seasons when they've won the title. You know what I mean? So this is not the Man City of old that everyone is this dangerous, efficient Man City. Like, this is not the same sort of Man City. So, and even if whatever happens in this game, I don't see them going on some crazy run either. They're gonna continue to be inconsistent the rest of the way. If they go on some crazy run, then fair play. But nothing they've done this season says to me that they're gonna go on a mad run. It just says to me that they're gonna draw here, win here, lose here, draw here, win here, lose here. They're gonna be inconsistent as they have been this season. It's just up to us to go on this right now. Get a draw against Man City or beat Man City when we've got a period where I think we've got a period of 9-10 games that are winnable games. We need to go on a run after that. Go on a run after that, because the last 10 games of the season are going to be difficult, because 5 of those games are against Newcastle, Tottenham, Liverpool, and City. No, not Tottenham. Chelsea instead of Tottenham. So five of those games are going to be difficult. But in the last 10 games, if we can go on a run now, and so we go into the last 10 games with at least an advantage, then we can the title is there for us. We're in an advantageous situation where we can win the title. So for me, I feel like we just need to go. We just need to put Everton and Brentford behind us. The players, especially, they need to put that out of their heads. Understand that these two games are very different kind of games. These two games are different situations, and this Man City game is going to be a different game. It's not going to be the same problems we faced against these teams, and we should be able to get a good result in that game. So going straight to my next point about my concerns around how teams have been doing this against us and what's been going on against the likes of Everton, Brentford, and Newcastle. Um, for me, like I said, the main concerns that I have around this year is that in those games we didn't seem to have enough in attack. And when you go into games like this, in the seasons, it could lead to multiple draws. You know what I mean? It could lead to you ending up getting draws and draws and things like that. Because when you have teams that sit really deep against you, you need to have enough in attack to be able to change. If you're first 11, at the end of the day, you think about it, we don't have like a starting 11 with attackers like, see, when Liverpool won the league with Salah, Mane, who are elite level attackers, or like with Man City when they had, or with Man City, they didn't have the elite level attackers besides Aguero and stuff like that, but they had depth. So they could always switch. They could always bring another guy off the bench, to get to ensure that when teams are sitting really deep, as teams get tired, they continue to bring on more and more quality off the bench to help them change the game. And this is what we lacked. For me, I feel like in these games against Everton and Brentford, what they've shown on Newcastle, what they've shown is that we don't have enough in attack. Like, you think about it, we started the season with what? Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus, Saka, and then we had Nketiah off the bench. And now, due to injuries, we're going into the second half of the season again with Martinelli, Nketiah, Saka, and just Trossard on the bench. So it's like we've gone through the first half of the season with only one attacker off the bench to change the game. Then we've gone through the second half of the season again with only one attacker to change the game. It's really difficult to keep on playing these games over and over again. We're playing with the same first 11. Yes, we've been lucky with other injuries in other areas. For example, like Partey hasn't had a major injury, so he's been available compared to the previous season. We've been lucky in the defensive area. We haven't had any injuries in those kind of areas of the pitch. But where we've been unlucky is in terms of like Smith Rowe hasn't been available. Fabio Vieira isn't really trusted. Gabriel Jesus got injured. So again, when you're having to keep on playing the same first 11, it's not so much of a physical fatigue, but more so like a mental fatigue. When you play these kind of teams that are sitting really deep, it gets frustrating. It's going to be really difficult. And when you do that with back-to-back teams that are doing the same thing, and you're not able to break them down, it just gets frustrating for the players to keep on trying to do the same thing over and over again. You have the ball for almost near 90 minutes, trying to break down a team that's just sitting deep constantly. It's very frustrating, and it's very fatiguing mentally. And I feel like this is the issues that we're having now, and this is something that could be concerning going towards the end of from now to the end of the season, because we're gonna face more teams that are gonna do things like this, and we don't really have the depth and attack to change things off the bench, especially until we get the likes of Smith Rowe back from injury, the likes of Gabriel Jesus back from injury, and maybe if Fabio Vieira starts to become trusted. But as long as they're not trusted, we're not gonna have enough options to change anything. So we're just going to have a first 11 that's trying to break down a team, and we only have one guy off the bench. We're just going to have to only keep them swapping Trossard and Martinelli constantly. And you're playing against these teams where it's like the first 11 players are getting frustrated, they're getting tired, they're trying to break this team down. This team is just sitting really deep. There's no space for them to exploit, and then they're just having to keep on doing the same thing over and over again. 40 minutes is gone, 50 minutes is gone, 60 minutes is gone, still nothing, and then you can only bring one person off the bench. It's not enough attackers on the bench. And my concerns is that this situation can lead to multiple draws. This is how you end up in a situation whereby you're the better team, but you can't break the opposition down, and you end up drawing here 0-0, end up drawing here 1-1. Maybe eventually they get on a counter or they get a set piece and they score, and you can even end up losing 1-0 after dominating all these games. Like if the games against Newcastle, Everton, Brentford, we had the most shots, but we ended up conceding one to Everton, conceding another one to Brentford. It's just situations like that can end up derailing our season, because I feel like we've got a clear path of, I think, like 9 or 10 games where they're winnable games. But these concerns are going to repeat themselves in those games, and it's how we're going to deal with it. That will determine if we can actually win the title or not. And then I go straight to another point I wanted to make. I'm not even gonna put too much stress on that with Ramsdale and the Brentford situation. There's not much I can say about that. I'd have to leave as that. He made a mistake there. There's been a few mistakes that I've seen noticed throughout the whole season here and there. I think long term, I'm not. There's not. I wouldn't really think about addressing it right now. But in terms of Ramsdale, I think long term we're gonna have to address that position, look into it. Let's see what he does, but I think we might, once we address other areas of the pitch and everything's all sorted, that might be the next area of the pitch where we need to actually have a look at and see if there's other quality out there that can push him. Because I don't like the way sometimes he likes to be involved, like to have a moment, or I don't know. It feels to me, it feels like at times he wants to have a moment, and he's too eager to this or too. Do you know what I mean? It's just like I don't know. I need to put my finger on it, but I don't know what exactly it is. But there's just been way too many different situations this season where I feel like he could have made a save or he could have done something different, but he didn't. Maybe due to concentration. I don't know what it is, but there's been a lot of there's been a few issues with him that we need to address, but I don't think now is the time for us to address it right now. We've got way more of a positions that we need to address, like left wing, centre mid, right back before we even get to the goalkeeper. So I'll leave that for there. And then Partey, for me, man, this guy is elite. When you look at his performance against Brentford, forget the fact that yeah we drew. He performed really well. Like he's unbelievable, incredible player. He's receiving the ball in deep areas. He's receiving the ball in the final third, constantly recycling the ball. He created 5 chances in the game against Brentford. Just receiving the ball, finding players between lines, receiving them back to goal, controlling the game in the final third, back to defenders, and finding players on the left side, finding players on the right side, just putting himself in this great position. Every time you give him the ball, he finds a player in an attacking area. He's constantly dribbling to create another angle again. Just an unbelievable player, and then defensively as well. It's not just the fact that he's got great positioning when he's deep, but also the fact that when he pushes up as well, he can press and win the ball high up the pitch and tackle the ball. If a team is trying to counter attack as well, he quickly intercepts and stops the counter straight away. But Partey is just an unbelievable player. We've got a few, like, I think we only have one elite player, and that's Partey. Saka is in a world class sort of level right now, but in terms of elite players, it's just Partey, man, because he's one of the best in the world. For me, the best in that position in the league, when he's an unbelievable player, one of the best in the world. But yeah, man, Partey was like through all of this, what's been going on. I think we just need to remember that Partey's been unbelievable, and obviously it's been helpful that he hasn't been injured. If we win the league title, a lot is going to be down to him. He's our best. He's our most like. Besides Saka, he's probably our most talented player. Like he's an unbelievable player. But yeah, man, let me go into some of the other things I want to talk about as well. And one of the important things I've been saying even before the season started, and I've been banging on this on about this on over and over and over and over again, is that left wing position. I like Martinelli. That's not really any doubt there. I like Martinelli, but I feel like in the way we're playing right now, yeah, he's way too wide for him to be the kind of player that he needs to be. He's a player that needs to be inside. He's an inside forward. He needs to be central, closer to goal. He needs to be making runs in behind. He doesn't need to be receiving on the touchline trying to make 1v1 dribbles. He's not Saka. You know what I mean? Like he's not like a 1v1 winger out wide who just stays out wide trying to dribble and then making creative situations. He can do that just because he's talented. He's doing this because the only reason why he's actually done well in this position is because he's really talented. But that's not the best way to get the best out of him. The best way to get the best out of him is when you look at Salah at Liverpool and look at how Mane were being used. They're being used as inside forward because they had fullbacks that were overlapping. Martinelli is playing in a situation whereby you've got Zinchenko, who's constantly inside, and Xhaka, who's constantly inside. So he has to stay really wide to stretch the pitch. That's just a part of the system, and he's playing the role and he's being disciplined with what he's been told to do. But it's not getting the best out of him because he's way too wide. And now that we don't really have like Gabriel Jesus, who used to swap with him and drift it outside, and then he gets to go inside, he can't really rotate with anybody else. So he's ends up being stuck in that position, and he's not really a goal for it. And I feel like one of the biggest things that we needed going into the season. This is even before the January transfer window. One of the biggest things that we needed was we needed to have another goal scorer in the wide area, especially on the left hand side. We needed to have another goal scorer there, and that was what the player in Martinelli's position was supposed to be. There's multiple players out there that we can look for in the summer, but I feel like we've had the whole of summer to find the left winger who could be like an extra goal scorer. and we had the whole of January, and we didn't find, we only, obviously in the end we came out of a backup winger, which was Trossard. But I feel like we've missed out in that situation, because when you look at what Odegaard and Saka did against Brentford towards the end, that's the creative hub of the team, and the way they went down there, created that situation on the right hand side, and then cut back, and we had the goal scorer on the left. If we have a guy who's really comfortable on that left hand side, in terms of like being a 1v1 winger out wide, and at the same time also drifting inside of being a goal scorer, and is capable of doing those two things together, you can see what's possible when we have that kind of player out there, which is why I've been saying the left winger is key. And yes, we don't have that player right now, but in the summer that player is going to be key, and I think that's what we're really missing in that area of the pitch. We're missing a left winger that can provide that kind of quality. And that's some of the struggles that we're seeing against this team defending really deep, is that we're not really having multiple goal scorers right now. Like I said before, Saka is not a goal scorer. He just scores because it's good enough. The same with Odegaard. But we need to have another goal scorer as well as Nketiah. And what Trossard did there was just showing us what was possible with another goal scorer coming inside on the left-hand side when Trossard scored against Brentford. And long term, I think this is what we're missing this season. And hopefully it doesn't affect our title race. But long term, that's something that we need to address. So with Xhaka, as I said already before, like at the start of the season, he started the season well, making runs into the box, attacking the box, getting goals, getting assists, contributing in the final third, overlapping. Obviously, we had Gabriel Jesus, who was dropping deep from midfield and allowing him to attack the box as well, which helped because it creates space for him. But I've always said these things aren't natural to him, and we've seen post the World Cup that he's not been able to continue to play in this sort of manner, because it's not a natural thing that he does. He's not that kind of player. He just does it really well because he's just been doing it, or he was doing it well at the start of the season, because he understands how to play the role, he understands the system, he understands the instruction that's been given to him, and he has the engine to do it. So that's what he was doing. But in terms of just the natural ability to do it, he's not been able to do it, and there's an issue in the team, and it's shown in these sort of games, in the Everton, Brentford, and the Newcastle games, where you see that his contribution is not really as much in those games because he's not able to affect the game. When you have teams that are sitting really deep, what you need is a player that, say for example, you have Newcastle, Everton, Brentford, who are sitting deep in these, like, with their blocks really close to each other. They have blocks that are like close to each other like this. For example, say like the cameras here, blocks that are close, they're tight spaces in the middle. What you used to get from guys like Ozil is where they'll drift behind the opposition's midfield, and in between the midfield and defense, find a little gap in there, and then just receive in between them before the defender or the midfielder is able to turn around and see what's happened. They've already received and turned in one motion, and already facing the opposition and already attacking them, either by directly running with the ball or they find another pass in between lines. But that ability on the movement and sort of like to receive and turn straight away, that technical quality, the ball control to receive and turn in one motion, attack and then face the game and then find someone in the final third. The moment you receive in that kind of position, you already force these teams to already immediately start to pull out. So once you receive in that sort of position, you're going to get defenders who are going to come forward because you've basically bypassed their midfield. So they're going to leave their position, which then creates space in their defensive area as well, because they've basically left their spot. You see what I mean? So then it creates another gap there, which another player can exploit. So just those little movements all of a sudden can start to create gaps. And this is what we don't have with Xhaka. This is what he doesn't offer. Obviously, guys like Fabio Vieira and Smith Rowe are players who have this sort of skill set in a more, naturally, this is the kind of players that they are. This is the profile that they are. But we haven't been able to rely on Fabio Vieira this season. And the same with Smith Rowe, because he's been consistently injured. We haven't been able to rely on him. So this is why I say this has been an issue, because we've had to basically rely on, as I mentioned earlier on, with Martinelli on the left-hand side, where we've needed a more natural player on that side, and then we've had to rely on Xhaka for the whole season with no kind of backup in that position. He's consistently playing in that position without being dropped or anything like that, and we've had to keep on playing him there in a position that doesn't really suit him. You know what I mean? So hopefully this is not something that would affect us in the season, but we have seen that he's had an effect in the game in Newcastle, Everton and Brentford. But hopefully this is something we can address going forward in the next few games, or the remaining games that we have this season, because we are going to face teams that are going to be compact as well, sitting deep, making all these blocks, and we need more movement and more contribution from our midfield, Odegaard included. The next thing I was going to say, as always, I was going to talk about Gabriel Jesus as well. One thing I was going to say about him is, when Nketiah came to the team, I already said like Nketiah is doing really well. We don't miss Jesus and stuff like that in the way he's playing, and Nketiah's done well. Nketiah's done a great job in what he's done. He's done a really good job. He's done a great job. But one thing that we do miss, especially from Gabriel Jesus, we've seen in these games against Everton, Brentford, and Newcastle, we've seen in those games, is the fact that because, as I mentioned earlier, what we're lacking in Xhaka in terms of like the movement that we're lacking, What we're lacking in that sense, yeah, because Gabriel Jesus is able to drop deep into midfield, receive the ball, and then attack into the box. So basically, he will drop deep, receive the ball, and directly attack in the opposition. Him dropping deep already is already pulling defenders out of position. Him dropping into midfield is already pulling the midfielders to come backwards as well at the same time. Any little movement you make in between us, especially from a player who can carry the ball or dribble the ball and carry it over distance, you immediately attract the players to you. And when Gabriel Jesus drops deep and attracts these players to himself, he automatically creates space that other players can exploit. You think about the game against Wolves where he dropped deep, received the ball on the left hand side and was running through across the midfield, and then all of a sudden defenders are following him, gaps are being created, and Fabio Vieira attacks that space, and that's how we got the goal. So things like that is what we've missed. Well, that's the for me. Obviously, Nketiah came in because Gabriel Jesus wasn't scoring goals, he wasn't taking his chances. So Nketiah came in and started taking those chances, but. And Nketiah's had a really good contribution to our title since. But what we have missed is in these tight games where teams are defending really deep, is Gabriel Jesus dropping into midfield. And he's basically showing the advantages of a false nine, where you drop into midfield and you carry the ball, pick up the ball, then you drive into the final third. You disorganize the opposition's deep block. You go into the left hand side as well. You pull players out into wide areas, and someone from the wide area attacks the space in the middle that's been opened up. This is the kind of things that we're missing from Gabriel Jesus, and that's what we've missed basically from him. In terms of like the next thing I want to talk about in terms of the title race, obviously we haven't blown the title race. It's still there. We're not in the best situation. Hopefully, if we win against Man City, then we put ourselves back on track again. If we draw, then we're still in a good situation. But I feel like when you think about the three main positions that we had, that we knew that we needed to address from the summer, not just January, but from the summer, it was left wing, centre mid, and defensive mid. We already said before that we wanted to ensure that Xhaka is not just constantly playing every single game. I said before the start of the season, I didn't want him to be a first choice player anyways. But then he started playing well, and I said, that's fine, let me continue. But we're seeing where he lacks and his flaws and everything in these performances, in these tight games. And I feel like the fact that from the summer up until January, in these three key positions, the signings that we've made are Trossard, Vieira, and Jorginho. So we wanted a player to compete with Martinelli, and we got Trossard. We wanted a player to compete with Xhaka, and we got Fabio Vieira. And then we wanted a player to be able to back up for Partey, and we got Jorginho. For me, these three signings aren't really. I mean, unless obviously Fabio Vieira long term is more of a long term signing, but for this season they've like Vieira, for example, hasn't made any great contribution. We just signed Trossard and we just signed Jorginho, and Jorginho we know is not a long term signing either, and we know there's a massive or significant difference between himself and Partey, and as I've mentioned before, he doesn't offer us the defensive qualities that Partey gives us. He might do some of the stuff on the ball, but not the defensive aspect. So if we lose Partey, we lose defensive qualities. With Fabio Vieira, we needed someone more natural in that left centre mid position, someone who's going to be able to attack the thing, and Fabio Vieira has not been able to offer that. Smith Rowe is constantly injured, so that's another signing again that we've had that's not really been able to contribute properly towards the season. We're going to see what Trossard is going to offer. Obviously, short term, hopefully he does the job, but long term, he's not going to be the one. Again, we're going to go into the next window again, and we're going to figure out, and whatever happens, or even forget about the summer window, whatever happens in this title race, we're going to see that these three key positions are going to be really, really important in what happens. And if Trossard can step up where Martinelli is not able to, and support him in that sense, and if Vieira is able to contribute, or even Smith Rowe is able to come back, yeah. And if Jorginho is able to do his part when Partey is not available or anything like that, then we can actually have a good title race, and we can actually, then they could be positive signings. But at the moment, if you're going to rate those three signings in terms of what they've offered to our title race, or what they could possibly offer to a title race in terms of their quality, it's going to be like an average sort of thing. It's not, these aren't significant signings, and that are going to make significant differences, especially from like Fabio Vieira, who's actually been here longer than the other two. You know what I mean? So hopefully it's not something that cost us, but these are three key positions that we should have addressed all the way in the summer, and we addressed them with players that are not really up to par, and we're actually starting to see the issues. Going into next season, like I said, we're seeing these issues with Everton, Brentford and Newcastle kind of games. Going into next season, we're going to get more teams that are actually going to play like this, and those positions are actually going to be really key in terms of if we're actually going to be a team that's going to compete for the title again, maybe try and go for back-to-back back-to-back title if we eventually win it and stuff like that. And those 3 positions are going to be key. And if we're not able to address them again in the summer, and we come out of the next summer again with signings that are not up to par, that can make a significant difference, then that's up to us. You know what I mean? Then that's our fault if it again costs us in another season. But anyways, that's me for the video. Let's see what happens in the Man City game. Hopefully we get 3 points. See you in the next video.